If you think of the team members as bricks, I think it's the mortar between us that's more important. I think it's the way we interact, the way we care for each other, the way we draw in other people is going to be far more efficient in serving the need of the person in front of us rather than any one person being the superhero. That's why I don't want you to do this about me. We met when when we were in our undergrad at the University of Waterloo. And we met in a Bible study, and great place to meet somebody. And from there, we just stuck together, and we've gone through this whole journey together. So we got married after my first year of medical school, and had kids in residency. The skills that we had, we could use to give back, to contribute to some of the needs that are around our world. That we didn't need to continue to build an empire for ourselves, but we could go and use those in other areas where it might be more necessary. We looked at a lot of different agencies in a lot of different places, and learned about an organization called Mercy Ships, where we could work together. And it was something that we always felt we would do as a family. So we wanted to find a place where my wife's skills would be useful as well as myself. So we lived on a ship called the Africa Mercy. And it was a hospital ship that had a 75-bed hospital with a lab and x-ray and a CAT scanner and 6 operating rooms. I think we could have done a better job of understanding how limited amount of difference we could make for people. But they still encounter huge difficulties when they get back to their village and whatever they do. There sometimes was a realization that we're only a small piece in this picture, and we maybe could have done better at helping people to understand that. There's people in our world who have nothing and yet live happily, right? And then there's us who have lots of stuff and don't always live happily. It's a challenge to see. It's a challenge to see, why do we have so much stuff and not there? It kind of made me back off a little bit and think more about the meaning that you can have in caring for people on a much smaller scale. It doesn't have to be something life-changing, but sometimes those small things are life-changing. I wanted to be a family doctor. I wanted to be able to work in a community, to build relationships with people, have that long-term connection with them. If you are truly trying to meet the needs that your patients have, it can be a weight on your heart. It can be a challenge to see difficult situations that people have to deal with and to not be able to make it all better. The hardest thing as a family doctor for me is not so much when you see someone with a very serious illness who's declining. Those things, although very painful, there's so little that can be done about it. But to see a patient who comes in and has grown up with pain and difficulty in their background all along, or to hear them tell you a story of how somebody impacted their life in a really horrible way, those things are the ones that are heavy for me to take home and that I struggle with. Think, how could these kinds of things happen?
Going to work this here, look. That there will fit inside.
Come on, you will too. But it'd be nice if you could break it, bend it in there, and it'd be like a bar and other shit on it.
There's lots of people in Cambridge who don't have a place to live. I don't know the statistics that say that it's higher in Cambridge than somewhere else. I think in Cambridge, because we drive past the bridges, we see a lot of that more than we would in another city. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's good for us as people who live in Cambridge to be able to drive by and see the needs that are around us and to be bothered by it. And it's not always an easy thing to see. It doesn't always make us happy to see that, but I think it's a good thing. In that sense, I think it's a good location for a place for people who don't have a place to stay. Often people live there because they have very complex problems, whether it's addictions or loss of their family connections or burnout of their caregivers, or the system doesn't provide for the needs that they have. Many different reasons that people will be there. They may not be able to make an appointment because they don't have a phone, or they don't have a family doctor. And if they can make an appointment, because life is chaotic, you don't have a home, or you don't have an income, maybe you don't have a bus ticket to get there. So getting to see a family doctor, accessing care is really difficult. Being able to sign up and just see a doctor who happens to be there is much easier. When we started doing that, it seemed to really suit and seemed to really serve a need, and it's brought out a totally different population of people who couldn't get their needs met before, that now we can serve some of those needs.
And then I lost my place and back and forth between the shelter here.
Yeah. For someone walking in, I think it's most important just to remember that you're encountering people, and they may be not understanding the world like you do. So if you walk into a nursing home and see someone with a dementia, they might be afraid of you, they might be not understanding you. Sometimes your own parent in the nursing home doesn't recognize you, right? In the shelter, you may be encountering people with some of those same neurological symptoms. Maybe it's because of a drug, but it might be because of mental health, or it might be because of the experiences that someone has had in their life, that they just don't trust people. So you need to come in with a respect, trying to see through some of the behaviors, and instead taking the person for where they are. Not being too put off by behavior or by a smell or by an appearance, but knowing that I could be in that same situation. He was, can I come in with them? And I said, yeah, sure, that's fine. Because if he comes in and helps somebody else, then maybe eventually he'll be willing to talk about, well, maybe I should do something for me, right? If a guy who's living in the shelter here, the shelter system, can think that much about somebody else, that says a lot.
You don't know anything that would be able to help with that?
With the map? We just get them started. We start them with whatever tests they need. We talk things through, and we have to deal with things in very small amounts. If somebody's using crystal meth and there are things going on in their brain that you don't understand, that person might be having a difficult time understanding what's going on in the world around them. So it can be scary. But having people around me that I'm working with, working as a team, makes it far less scary. As a team, we can support each other, and maybe one person has a rapport that I don't have, and that makes it easier, and they can take over. The people, I have to hand it to the workers at the bridges who work on with very little pay to deal with some very scary situations. And as a city, I wish we could get behind the people who are working there, rather than criticizing them. If your life was wonderful, you probably wouldn't be putting a needle in your arm. And I wish people understood those sorts of things, that it's not something that people are just choosing to do just because they want to, but because there's underlying factors that really push people to make those kind of decisions.
Sounds like a rubber making commercial already, bud.
Caring for other people doesn't always take us to the places where you'd expect. And if you put a value in looking after somebody else's need, it doesn't necessarily build you up. It doesn't necessarily make your career advance, because it doesn't always allow you the opportunities that other people might.
Here comes the siren. Give us the noise.
There he goes.
I don't want to live in a world where we just live for ourselves. It doesn't make sense to me.